and blocked our exit from the pit. Our car had to stop. We had to pull the car back. I think the front wing on our car touched their rear wheel, which they intentionally put out in front of us.
Did your car get into their pit area?
Every car gets in every pit here. That's the only way you can turn into these pit boxes. There's not enough room. The cars don't turn 90 left and 90 right.
All right, thank you, Tony. Obviously, he's not real happy with what's going on down here, Paul, by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, and there is further in terms of penalty. When the race is over, that tire changer and Stefan Johansson must go appear before the officials and explain their action with possible further penalty.
And Tony Bettenhausen's Alumax car can hardly buy a break. So fast on so many occasions. In fact, this morning in the warm-up, Johansson arrived in the pit lane with 15 feet of flame behind him as he got an oil fire and almost destroyed that Alumax Penske.
So we still circulate under our second full course caution of the day with 20 of the 84 laps in the record books. An update on the second place car, Jacques Villeneuve. Here's Jan Beekes.
Paul, you mentioned that Jacques Villeneuve was going to be coming into the pits, and in fact, the Forsyth Green crew actually rolled out and was ready to do it. But they decided, we're going to take our cues from Roger Penske. We're going to wait. We're going to follow Paul Tracy. Jacques has radioed in and said this car is pretty well balanced on the tires at the moment, and both Barry Green and his engineer, Tony Sicali, say things are going just as planned, unlike poor Stefan Johansson. Paul?
Well, on this yellow, Paul Tracy and Villeneuve both did not stop, neither did Teo Fabi, so they line up 1, 2, 3 as they'll come back to the green flag. Nigel Mansell, who is fourth, did stop. Raul Boisel stopped, as did Mauricio Gugelmin, Mark Smith, and Scott Sharp. That's in the order as they'll come back, and you can see some of that excess rubber flying off the tires as they come back up to speed now, and the green flag comes out once again, and here we go.
Villeneuve down the inside of Parker Johnstone, who gets to use the Step 5 Honda engine for the very first time this afternoon. Step 5 being the latest of the Honda IndyCar development engines.
Paul Tracy caught the advantage on that restart as he was able to pull away. But now both Villeneuve, Fabi, and now Nigel Mansell have moved past. And so first through fourth are all running together on the race course as well. Now Raul Boisel has to get around Parker Johnstone, and then the top five will be chasing the leader, Paul Tracy.
Now the beauty of different strategies can be seen right here. Mansell, who's currently running in fourth place, has made a pit stop. Everybody in front of him has to stop. Mansell will lead this race. Now Roger Penske has three different choices. So he decides to take Al Jr. in, so he's covered in the event of another yellow coming out at the wrong time, and he leaves Tracy out, so he is covered both ways with two fast cars here.
Al Unser Jr. running back in 18th, his teammate Fittipaldi is 20th. This is the battle at the front of the field now, with Teo Fabi leaving the Jim Hall team at the end of this year. And the indications for his future, as we noted a moment ago, are that a new team will be formed by Jerry Forsyth and that Teo Fabi will be the driver. Here is Mansell, his final run in IndyCar, and then off to Spain in 3 Formula One races, and after that, who knows? There's the stop-and-go penalty for Stefan Johansson, obviously not happy.
And that gesture from the cockpit from Stefan was not, I'm about to send you a Christmas card. It definitely was fair and foul language being exhibited through the end of his glove.
And Stefan Johansson came right back into the racing action, drifting across the pit lane and right up to speed and into the fight. This was Adrian Fernandez. That's the other car, of course, the car that was stopped. Though Adrian, just an innocent victim of this whole thing, because he was stopped holding his brake on the pedal while he changed the tires. He runs in 15th place right now. That's Fittipaldi just ahead of him.
So much good we have seen from Fernandez this year. Learning curve, very steep. Rick Gallis showed faith in him. Whoa, look at this. Dobson round the inside. He makes it nice and clean. There's a surprise that you can pull it off that easily in the braking zone.
And really, in a way, an unnecessary risk, because Fernandez has to answer a black flag. No indication that he has done so yet. He has 3 laps to accomplish that after they come back to green. And because they did indicate that they would stop both Fernandez, and there he goes. He heads off and into the pit area for his stop-and-go penalty as a result of the same altercation. No doubt in his case wondering what's going on here, and you hope that Rick Gallis gave him some information on the radio. There he is, in and out and on his way, but losing positions as he does so.
Well, that will be argued for some time as to who was in the right or who was in the wrong. It doesn't make any difference at this stage. You've taken your punishment, get on with the race. forget the frustration. Frustration can injure you in a race car because it can make you make mistakes you wouldn't otherwise make.
Nigel Mansell climbing the hill now, chasing Theo Fabi and Jacques Villeneuve as Theo closing in now.
2 Reynards, so we have a Penske leading. First and second and third did not pit yet. Then we have 2 Reynards, and then we have the Lola. So the Lola that has struggled so many times this year will lead this race when these top 3 are forced to make a pit stop. Mansell probably more relaxed this weekend than I've ever seen him. Came out early to play golf. Of course, he is a major golf fanatic. In fact, has bought himself a golf course in England that he will now build to become a championship course. Look at Fabi. Fabi down inside Villeneuve. Villeneuve slowing down. Tracy pulling away.
Try this one on for size. Stefan Johansson, another stop-and-go penalty as a result of a pit speed violation when he made his stop-and-go penalty. Raoul Boisel, Mauricio Gugelmin, they battle for 4th place. 5th and 6th position.
Good shots here of Gugelmin. Gugelmin has a lot of the 95 development parts on that particular Hollywood Reynard. 2 weeks ago, they went to Mid-Ohio. They have a new gearbox, new shock absorbers, and new brakes on that car. Interesting thing is, the Reynard uses the longitudinal gearbox. This is the new one, much shorter. They call this one the shortitudinal gearbox.
So 25 laps are now complete at Laguna Seca with Paul Tracy, the leader of the race. Villeneuve is second, followed by Fabi and Nigel Mansell. The Toyota Grand Prix of Monterey. We're back, the final PP3 of Monterey. We're back, the final PPG IndyCar World Series race of the season, the Toyota Grand Prix of Monterey, featuring the Bank of America 300, as Theo Fabi and Jacques Villeneuve go head-to-head with one another, and Fabi moves into second place. It looks like handling problems for Jacques as now here comes Nigel Mansell looking for a place.
Oh, he blocks Mansell. He sees him come. He goes right, he goes left. But Villeneuve, we saw him get sideways in the braking zone for turn 5. Maybe he's the first car to show that these rear tires are beginning to go away.
At the top of the hill, look how far over to the left Jacques was as they came into the corner. I'm surprised at that. It seems most drivers want to go all the way out to the right and then sweep into the top of the chicane.
And you see Villeneuve unstable entering corners. Mansell is ready to pounce. He doesn't have to take a risk, though. He knows he's going to make a pit stop. Boisel, who's behind Mansell, also will be forced to make a stop.
Paul Tracy is easily the leader here by a full 12 seconds now. We're focusing on the battle for second place, looking back now to the top of chicane once again as the rest of the field comes screaming down through. Alessandro Zampedri gets it sideways off the track.
Oh, I think he got a nudge from Frank Freon. Frank Freon in that second Regency car, I believe, hit the left rear of the MyJack car, and they can see it on the monitor, so they always prepare for a possible pit stop. Dale Coyne looking over his engineer's shoulders, and Cheever, who we know had electrical problems, sits motionless in the pits.
Now Cheever reported some form of electrical problem just a few moments ago, came into the pits. You see the rear cowling now being replaced, but Cheever falling well behind the fight as well. He was running in 9th place at his best point in the show. Let's get an update on both of those cars now from Gary Gerald.
As far as Zampedri is concerned, Derek, you're absolutely right. There must have been contact because one of those rear tires was punctured as he came in and made the change. We also got a radio report that Eddie Cheever at A.J. Foyt's car had lost all electronics, or a good portion of the electronics. He's got all kinds of problems.
29 laps now complete, 84 laps the scheduled distance. We should see some of the key players in this race that have not stopped, notably Paul Tracy, Fabi, Villeneuve, make stops very shortly here.
Good look at Fittipaldi under braking for the hairpin there yesterday morning. He tried to do that and looped it. Unusual for Emerson to spin in a practice session like that. Caught everybody by surprise as he tortured the tires going off backwards at that particular hairpin.
Emerson Fittipaldi. Expectation, of course, is he stays with Roger Penske for the next season. Question mark still remains Paul Tracy. The assumption is that he goes on to ride probably with Newman Haas, but that hasn't been confirmed. More Ford electronics telemetry on board Robbie Gordon's car. We're going to see a chassis change here.
Yes, indeed we are. This has been the leading Lola team all year. They have decided to move to the Reynard chassis. And in fact, they will receive chassis number 1. The first 95 Reynard that will be built will go to Walker Racing at the end of this month. And Gordon hopes to be testing by mid-November.
You know what's really neat about this? That's the pie display. That's exactly what you see on the dashboard of the race car itself, what the driver is looking at in the order he is. So walk us through all of that. Some of that I think we understand. Some of the rest I'm not so sure.
And this is the digital readout that Gordon is looking at the moment. That's why you see the digital numbers change all the time. Look at fuel trim, top left-hand side. That means Gordon is using 98% of the fuel available. If he uses 100, that is the maximum horsepower he can get that from that engine. But at the moment, 98% is what he needs, or the telemetry tells him that he has to run the car at in order to finish this race with the fuel they have in the car and in the tank.
Watching the RPMs, the speed and the boost. Those are the keys here.
And everything changes so fast. Now, if something goes wrong with the engine, all that disappears and the driver gets an alarm, a flashing alarm. That means you're in trouble, something's amiss, you may want to go to the pits.
Al Unser Jr. continues to try to come up through this field, now running in 6th place. He's made this run after falling all the way back to 21st. We'll continue right after this. Join Mike Trico, Joe Theismann, and Phil Simms tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time for NFL Prime Monday. Julie Brown's special guest will be Viking quarterback Warren Moon on NFL Prime Monday. We're at Laguna Seca, California for the Toyota Grand Prix of Monterey, featuring the Bank of America 300, watching Al Unser Jr. as he is really charging through this field now. Just ahead of him is Mauricio Gugelmin. That's the 5th place car, and little Al has his sights set on him. The leader of the race is Paul Tracy. Has been the leader all the way. But right after the start of the race, we ended up with a yellow flag situation in the 2nd corner, as Nigel Mansell gets a wheel off the track there and everybody else has to come through the dust. This was that situation on the very first lap.
Outside of Al Unser Jr. Now they come side by side. Watch the front wheels. Right there, contact breaks the front suspension of Gordon's and of Al Jr.'s car. Major delay for both of them.
Then after that, a 2nd accident involving this man. This is Michael Andretti.
Watch the right rear tire. Locks it up right there under braking, spins the car, and then he collects the innocent bystander, Bobby Rahal.
That takes Rahal and Michael Andretti out of the race. It was the first yellow of the day. The second was for Scott Goodyear, who put his car under the tires and the tire barrier, did severe damage to the right front, and that concluded our second yellow of the day, but it did stagger the pit stops, and so as a result, we're going to have to keep very close track, as will the teams of the stops. Now, here comes the leader of the race, Paul Tracy, as he peels off into the pits for his first stop of the day, Gary Gerald.
Paul, we checked with Clive Howell, who is calling the shots in the radio here with Tracy. If there would be any changes, he says, no, we really like the way this car is handling. I guess that's probably been obvious by the way he's been dominating this better than 2 points.